Lexus pretty much hit a gold mine when the company introduced the RX crossover back in 1999. Today, the RX is the best-selling luxury vehicle here in the United States. So what's Lexus to do when they realized they needed to put a model to slot below the RX? Well, they decided to go a completely different route with this vehicle. Today, let's take a look at the all-new 2016 Lexus NX. Now, in today's day and age, auto manufacturers pretty much make every generation of vehicle larger and heavier. The Lexus RX is no exception. The current generation has gotten pretty big, especially when you compare it to the scrappy little first generation that came out back in 1999. Now, Lexus realized that not every buyer wants a vehicle that big, so when they introduced the all-new NX for 2015, the company pretty much targeted the same dimensions of that first generation RX. Now, the Lexus NX comes in two different models. I've got the NX200t, which is arguably the engine that most people are more interested in. This sports the first ever turbocharged engine option in the Lexus lineup. The other option for the NX is a 300h, which basically comes with the same powertrain out of the Camry hybrid. Of course, that's a different review. Now, the Lexus NX actually shares the same architecture with the Toyota RAV4. That's a vehicle that does pretty well for Toyota. And of course, Lexus does a pretty good job with differentiating its models versus its parent company, Toyota. You can see the design of the NX looks nothing like the somewhat boring and bland looking RAV4. The front of the vehicle sports the corporate Lexus spindle grille, which in my eyes actually looks very well integrated into the NX. It's a design that you'll either love or you'll hate. Personally, I actually love the design of the vehicle. I like it a lot more than the current generation Lexus IS, which I showed you guys in my last Lexus review. Now, of course, my particular model is the F Sport model. This is Lexus's sport package, if you must say. The sport package includes several different niceties, such as the sport mesh grille, the larger air intakes in the front, the underbody spoilers, front, side, and rear. And then, of course, in the rear of the vehicle, you do have slightly darkened tail lights along with some underbody side extensions. Now, the F Sport package also includes these nicely finished 18-inch wheels that do have these nice black inner spokes. The wheels themselves, to me, they could have a little bit lower profile rubber, but Lexus wanted to make sure that the ride quality of this vehicle still was intact, and that's typically a Lexus strength. Now, in terms of the overall length, the NX stretches about 182 inches long. It's about an inch longer than the RAV4 and about an inch wider than the RAV4. The two share the 104.7-inch long wheelbase. Now, one thing you're going to notice immediately is the NX is lower in terms of the height. It's about 2.5 inches lower than a RAV4, which does reduce the cargo capacity in the back, which the NX does fall below the class leaders in terms of usability for the space. But overall, I think the proportions of the NX are quite attractive. It's certainly a vehicle that stands out, which is one of the main criticisms of the Lexus RX. It's typically a boring, bland, luxurious transportation appliance, and Lexus is certainly looking to change that. The NX is definitely the vehicle that will change your perception of the Lexus crossover. But let's take a look at the interior and see if it carries on that luxurious tradition of a Lexus. Now, stepping inside the interior of the all-new Lexus NX, you can see the cabin will remind you nothing of the Toyota RAV4 counterpart. Everything you touch, everything you feel in here looks very expensive, very premium. These F Sport specific seats are very nicely bolstered. They do hug you very well in the corners. The overall ambience in here certainly feels like a Lexus full-on. Now, stepping inside the cabin, it does give you that traditional SUV step-in height, which is a little bit higher, of course. The roof line, what I'm noticing, is a little bit low, so taller drivers, you will have to duck your head. That's one thing about the NX is it makes a lot of compromises in its design in terms of the interior space and usefulness. Now, shutting the door, It has a very nice solid thunk when you do shut that door, so of course it aids to the premium feel of a Lexus. Now, my tester does have Lexus's smart key access system. It does come standard with their intelligent key, so all you have to do is keep this key fob inside the vehicle. That little sleeve, by the way, is a dealer accessory. It's an extra. But all you have to do is put your foot on the brake, and then the button, which is a little too high for my taste, is right here, and that starts the engine right up. You can see my tester does have a premium package that does include a power tilt telescoping steering wheel, which again is a feature that is not available on a vehicle such as the Acura RDX, just to name a couple. But you can see the gauges look very nice, and of course the overall dashboard look and layout is certainly very exquisite looking. The materials are very nice, soft touch. There's leather stitching right here on the upper portions here. There's some aluminum trim splashed throughout. That's part of the F Sport package. The wood grain, if you guys want that, will come if you guys do not option for the F Sport package. Now, the windows are automatic up down for all four. That's definitely a nice touch. It's expected of a Lexus. One thing I'm noticing that's a detail, when you put the window up, the driver's window actually slows before it shuts all the way, just so it doesn't make kind of like a loud noise when it shuts all the way. You can see the door panels are also nice leather stitch right here, more of that aluminum look trim, and then leather stitch right here where your elbows are going to rest. Now, the steering wheel of this vehicle is certainly very nice. It comes with the F Sport package. There's an F Sport badge here. The rim is very thick. Of course, the gauges are a little bit different when you go for this model. You'll also notice it has sport pedals down there that is also included with the F Sport package. Now, the 2-liter engine certainly intrigued me when I first got into this vehicle. It's the first ever turbocharged engine from Lexus. So I will be showing you guys definitely what this engine is about in the test drive. Now you can see in terms of the center stack here, this console is very wide. It does eat up into the space in here quite a bit. If you guys are wider, you're not going to really fit into this vehicle very well. Lexus did realize that, and they padded this area here with leather stitching, and it's soft, so your knees are pretty much going to always be hitting this, especially if you guys have long legs. I, on the other hand, fit very perfectly in here. I'm 5'7", which for me, I feel like the typical buyer who goes for this vehicle will probably be my height or a little bit shorter. Now, the center stack in here actually is pretty easy to use. You do have a good amount of buttons, but it's well labeled. It's pretty logically laid out as well. The climate control, of course, is up here. There's dual zone automatic. Your heated seats are here as well. Your CD player is actually right here, so I'm surprised Lexus still gives that to you. Your drive mode selector is right here, and basically it's always going to default to normal mode. And you push that, it'll go to normal. Switch it over to the left, it'll go to eco. You can see the display goes from black to blue, and then if you kick it over to the right, it goes to sport mode, which you can see it turns the system red, or it turns the dashboard red. There's also a little active sound control system here, which I'll go into that in the test drive. This little control is hidden down here. Active sound control, or ACS, basically it controls the engine note. This vehicle, of course, has the synthetic sound symposer system, where it funnels in or it creates engine noise via the speakers in the car, and it actually sounds like the car has an intake when it's on and it's in sport mode. It only activates when it's in sport mode. We'll go, of course, into the test drive later, and I'll show you guys that. Now, this vehicle only comes with a 6-speed automatic transmission, which is a little bit disappointing. All of its competitors have 7, 8, even 9 speeds, so the fact that Lexus is using a 6-speed kind of reeks of cost cutting to me. The Lexus IS 200t and the GS 200t and RC 200t have an 8-speed automatic, so I would like to see Lexus eventually change that, but nevertheless, it's a pretty good transmission. When you put it into reverse here, you do have a nice backup camera. My particular tester does have the Lexus Park Assist system for $500, so it gives you front and rear sensors. It does have trajectory. The camera itself is a little bit on the grainy side, and there's no 360-degree camera viewing system like some competitors may offer, but you can see coming back over here, it does have a manual shift mode. There are paddles on the wheel when you guys want to get a little feisty with your NX, and overall, I really like the layout of the center stack here. It's pretty easy to use. Now, one thing I did notice this vehicle has, you'll notice here it says automatic here. It does have an electronic parking brake. I really like this feature because whenever you take it out of drive, the parking brake is automatically released, and when you put it into park, the parking brake is automatically put on. So it's a nice feature to have. This is the auto brake hold feature. If you guys are driving, and then the car will basically come to, or hold the brakes when you come to a full stop when you're in traffic. Now, this area right here, it controls the infotainment system. My particular tester does not have the navigation package. That's about $2,000 more. And if you do have the nav package, you'll actually get a mouse pad controller here. It basically works like what's on your laptop. It's a little mouse pad that you use with your finger. Now, This one, of course, has a little knob, which I actually really like. There's even a nice leather padded here where your palm's basically going to rest. And of course, some buttons here that get to your audio, your menu, or your back button. When you push menu, for example, it's basically a little scrolly wheel in terms of the icons. You can go to setup, display, radio, media, climate, phone. Of course, there is no nav function in this vehicle, but it's pretty easy to use. So I'm pretty impressed with this system. I kind of wish that Lexus kept the controller knob here instead of the touch pad with haptic feedback like you get in the models with navigation. The graphics of the system are pretty nice. It's pretty quick to use as well. This is not a touch screen, of course. This is way too far, so don't try to touch it with your finger. But overall, I think that the center stack layout in here is certainly well logically laid out and pretty easy to use. Now, one thing I did notice, cup holders are right here, nice padded armrest right here. My tester does have the QA wireless charging port. If you have the special backing plate, you can just put your phone on there, turn it on or off. It'll automatically charge your phone. Now, the center console here also has some pretty good storage. Your USB port is down in there along with your aux and your power outlet. Now, one thing, I actually found a little bit of an Easter egg inside the interior of this vehicle. When you pull up on this little removable panel here, you can put some stuff in there, store something, hide it. When you flip this over, there's a mirror in here, almost kind of like Lexus expects or suspects the buyer that's going to go for this car is going to really like this mirror. I'm not going to say much more over that, but again, it's pretty useful, I guess, if you guys want an extra mirror. A little bit of an Easter egg that I found in the cabin. Now, my tester does have a sunroof that's part of the premium package. It's only just a standard size sunroof. There is no pano roof option that's available on this car like some competitors, so a little weird to me that Lexus is not offering the pano roof option, but again, it's a very nice feature to have. It does brighten up the cabin in this vehicle. Now, overall, I'm pretty impressed with the interior of the NX. There are a couple of pieces in here that remind me of a Toyota a little bit, just this font right here and some of the buttons on the steering wheel. But Lexus does a really good job at differentiating the cabins of their models versus Toyota. I even like the satin nickel finish of the Lexus emblem on the steering wheel as opposed to the shiny chrome that most manufacturers use. Now, looking at the rear seat of the Lexus NX, this is an area where a lot of crossovers or crossover shoppers typically hold high up in their buying process. Now, you can see the NX has a pretty nice rear seat at first glance. The floor is pretty much flat in the center. There's pretty good foot space underneath there. Now, stepping inside that lower roof, you do have to duck your head, again, if you guys are tall. But you can see there's pretty good leg room back here, especially for somebody of my stature. There's nice rear seat vents back here. There's no heated rear seats for some reason. Lexus doesn't offer in this vehicle. And then when you shut the door, same solid thunk as the front seat, same high quality materials. Now, one thing I am noticing because of that low roof line, the roof itself is pretty low. So again, the sunroof takes up a little bit of space. I found myself actually almost hitting this area of the roof panel if you lean over. So you do feel a little bit cramped in terms of the height space, but in terms of the leg room, it is pretty spacious. You do have a nice armrest right here with some cup holders. And the seats themselves, they actually do fold down 60/40, of course, and they also recline forward and back if you guys want to get more comfortable on a long trip. Now, a power tailgate is actually a $400 option that my tester has, and it's a pretty useful feature. I would highly recommend it if you guys are going to go for this vehicle. Now, when you open up the cargo area, this is probably the most disappointing aspect of the NX. Compared to Toyota's own RAV4, the RAV4 actually almost has double the space in here. Now, with the seats up, you're looking at about 18 cubic feet of space, just under 18 cubic feet of space. You can see all my equipment pretty much takes up most of the space back here. When you fold that seat down, there is a power fold option available. My tester doesn't have it. You're gonna get about 55 cubic feet of space. Now, the RAV4, when you fold down the seats, offers 74 cubic feet of space. So Lexus did reduce it a significant amount just to give you that lower roofline, that improved look in the overall design of the back. Now, when you look underneath the floor here, you do actually have a nice storage area, and Lexus does give you a temporary spare tire down there, so at least they didn't give you the fix-a-flat kit like some manufacturers. Now, compared to the luxury rivals in this class, the NX has roughly about 5 to 10 cubic feet less space. The Volvo XC90 does offer the most at about 67. The Acura RDX is about 61. The BMW X3 is at about 63 as well. the hood of the NX200t, this is probably the most important aspect of this car. Instead of going with the somewhat boring 2.5 liter four-cylinder in the RAV4 or the underpowered 2.5 liter V6 that was in the IS250 that I showed you guys, Lexus developed an all-new turbocharged engine. This is a 2 liter direct and port injected twin scroll single turbocharged four-cylinder engine. Modern piece of engineering that's basically finally caught up to the Germans in terms of technology. Now this 2 liter turbo four-cylinder has their variable valve timing. It's rated at about 235 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque, roughly matching the output that you get in the BMW X3, which is about 240. Now you can see the engine is transversely mounted. If you guys look underneath the hood of the IS200t or the GS200t, that will be a longitudinally mounted engine. They've swapped the orientation for rear drive. Now this engine is the only offering in the NX200t, of course. That's basically going with the designation. There's also a hybrid model, the NX300H. That's a different review. This car does come in front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive with dynamic torque control. That's what Lexus calls it. It drives through only a 6-speed automatic transmission. Now, fuel economy is basically a strong category for consideration in this class, and Lexus claims this car will get 22 in the city, 28 in the highway for front drive, drops 21 to 27 with all-wheel drive, which is roughly about the same as a Nissan Murano with a V6. So, in terms of the numbers, the fuel economy by the EPA standards does lag a little bit behind the BMW X1 or the Mercedes GLC, for example, that just came out. But let's get on the road and see how it all works. The NX weighs about just over 4,000 pounds, so it's a pretty heavy vehicle. But let's see how this new turbo engine performs out in the real world, shall we? So I'll admit, when I found out that Lexus was finally sending me over the NX, I was a little bit excited. I was very curious to test the brand's first turbocharged engine offering, and to be honest, I also pretty much like the styling of this car. Some of you actually really hate it. I think it works on the NX. It certainly looks like it was designed to incorporate that big spindle grille with those fisheye hook LED headlights on my tester. But overall, let's take a look and see if this car drives much better than the somewhat bland appliance like Lexus RX. So one of my concerns when I first drove this car is turbo lag. I was expecting the car to have a fair amount of turbo lag. Most modern four-cylinder turbo engines typically have it, except maybe Volkswagen or BMW. Lexus has a fair amount. The transmission in this car kind of holds it back. A lot of the competitors have an 8-speed, but I am pretty impressed with the smoothness and the overall feel and delivery of this 2-liter turbo engine. Now, in typical fashion, the engine has a lot of strong mid-range pull, especially when you get it above between 3 to 5,000 RPM. It really just shoves you back in the seat, and it has a decent noise. Of course, most turbo four-cylinders don't have the most pleasant sounding noises. Now, that brings me to one point. This F-Sport model that I'm testing has what Lexus calls their ASC, or active sound control. It basically funnels in noise and it creates an artificial intake induction noise through the speakers of the car. Now, I've had it in normal mode this whole time, so I'm going to swap it over to sport mode by turning this little knob here that changes the gauges to a red color. It kind of firms up the suspension, firms up the steering, and let's see if you can hear a difference with the way it sounds when you accelerate. Now, with your foot to the floor, Lexus claims this car will get to 60 in about 7 seconds, and that honestly sounds about right. This car's main competitor, the Acura RDX, will certainly smoke it in a straight line. Now, one thing I want to point out is there's a little dial down here where you can adjust the noise of the active sound control. I actually had it all the way off there, so let me try that acceleration run again with it all the way up and see if you can hear the difference. And I definitely can hear a little more induction noise. Actually, it almost sounds like this thing has an intake on it, which is kind of silly for a vehicle like this. This is a family crossover. Actually, the way that Lexus basically has designed it to appeal to the type of buyers, typically a young professional female buyer. I mean, that's probably why they stuck the little Easter egg mirror in this little center console here. But I mean, I'm pretty impressed with the way the NX drives. The steering definitely weighs up in its sport mode. It has decent feel. It is pretty numb still. However, this is much better than the last Lexus RX I drove, which was like a 2011 model. So I haven't had a chance to drive the new one yet, but overall I'm pretty impressed with how this drives. It honestly feels like the RDX in terms of its handling. Now, in terms of the power delivery, the Acura RDX will smoke this car with the V6. It also sounds better to me. I much prefer the noise of a V6, but this basically goes in norm with a lot of its German competitors. The Mercedes GLC has the same 2-liter turbo 4. Most BMW X3s will have the 2-liter turbo 4. The Audi Q5 outsells all the other models with the 2-liter turbo 4. So, I mean, Lexus pretty much has delivered in terms of offering what the Germans give you at that Japanese level in terms of reliability and a little bit more value for money. Now, getting up to highway speeds here, you can definitely feel the fact that this car has pretty decent power, even in the higher RPM ranges. And in terms of the quietness, Lexus vehicles are pretty well known for being very quiet on the inside, and the NX certainly tries to deliver on that. I do notice a little bit more wind and road noise coming in, especially on this F Sport model. At 60-65 miles an hour, it's not as librarian or library quiet is what you're going to hear in the Lexus RX, for example, especially when you put your foot down and you hear that little active sound control generating noise. It actually is, it makes for an interesting ride. I mean, Lexus was targeting a much younger buyer with this NX, and they're certainly going to deliver. I mean, in terms of the styling, those standard LED headlights, which by the way are standard equipment. If you guys go for any of the German competitors, they either give you a halogen headlight or a bi-xenon headlight, and they make you pay extra for a lighting package. Lexus does offer a lighting package on this car that basically gives you like a premium LED where you get a high beam LED, not just the low beams like my tester. But I mean, overall, the design of this car, you either love it or you hate it, and it's definitely going to work in standing out. Especially compared to the Acura RDX, I keep coming back to that model because I feel like a lot of buyers do cross-shop the two brands. Even the 2016 model, which I haven't had a chance to drive yet, is still pretty bland looking compared to this Lexus model with the F Sport package. I would like to see Acura offer a little bit more in terms of spice and for the styling, so I do applaud Lexus for being a little bit more bold with its design. And overall, the NX certainly has impressed me in terms of its drivability, in terms of what it offers. I mean, it basically gives you a lot of the features that you like from the German brands, but gives it to you in that Japanese package, and some of you definitely prefer a Japanese car. Now, with this turbo 4-cylinder, you're probably wondering what the fuel economy is. Is it better than what you're going to get in a V6 powered crossover of the same size? Now, Lexus rates this car at 21-27, which is average numbers. Roughly the Acura RDX with the V6 gets the same. I've been averaging about 23 miles per gallon in my testing. On a pure highway run, I was able to get closer to 30, so the Lexus does deliver. I would assume this car would get better gas mileage if the company swapped in their 8-speed transmission instead of the 6-speed. So we'll wait and see if Lexus decides to spend a little bit more money and upgrade the transmission to give you 2 more gears. But overall, let's talk about some pricing, some numbers. The NX is one of Lexus's most inexpensive models. This car starts at about just under $35,000 for a base model, which does come pretty well equipped. Now, if you guys want the F Sport package with all the styling, the suspension, and handling tweaks, that's going to cost you about $2,000 more. This starts at about just under $38,000 for the F Sport model. All-wheel drive is like another $1,500 to $2,000 more. I would highly recommend their all-wheel drive system with the torque vectoring dynamic control, what Lexus calls it. Now, my tester has a couple options on it. It has the F Sport premium package for $2,000. That rolls in the heated seats, the power tilt telescoping steering column, the memory function linked to it. It's a pretty, and the sunroof as well. It's a pretty good value. I would probably assume most buyers would pick it. My tester is lacking the navigation option. That's another $1,800, but it does have the QA wireless charging for $300, the power back door for $400, the blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, that's another $660. All in, my tester is about $43,000, just over $43,000. Now that does make it roughly more expensive than other Japanese competitors, such as the Acura, such as the Infiniti. Especially if you guys wanted to go for just a non-premium brand, it is pretty expensive. If you fully load an NX to be equipped like the Germans with nav and everything, this can get close to $50,000, which is pretty expensive. Now, that a lot of you may, well, depending on your taste, some of you will either rank Lexus as a tier 1 luxury brand like Mercedes, like BMW, like Audi, and then some of you may not. So some of you may question paying basically almost German money for a Lexus. Now, keep in mind, this is a Toyota RAV4 platform, and the big question a lot of you are probably are wondering, does this car feel like a RAV4? Now, in my opinion, I don't think it feels like a RAV4. I think Toyota's done a very good job at differentiating the two brands. Lexus in general does a better job versus Acura at making their more mainstream Honda models or Toyota models feel a little bit more upscale. The turbo engine is certainly a plus. This nice interior is certainly a plus. And overall, I think that a lot of you will be very attracted to the NX, but I would highly recommend, cross-shopping it with a lot of the German competitors. The new Mercedes GLC comes to mind, the well-known Audi Q5. Then those of you who want more interior space can certainly check out the Acura RDX with its more traditional V6 engine, but more conservative styling. Anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed my overview of this 2016 Lexus NX200t. If you're in the market for a crossover like this, I would highly recommend checking one out. It certainly stands out in terms of its styling in this very crowded class. But if you guys are also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, make sure you follow me on Instagram. As always, like us on Facebook, and keep subscribing to the YouTube channel if you guys want to keep seeing all the latest reviews. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you all in the next video.